You will give me a child, or you'll give me your life.
She was only 19 when the most ruthless mafia boss in the city decided she would carry his heir. Refuse, and her entire family would vanish before sunrise. His wrinkled hands clamped her wrist like iron as he leaned in and whispered, "You will give me a child, or you'll give me your life." Now she's trapped in his gilded cage, forced into a wedding she never wanted. The wedding night she's been dreading starts in 60 seconds. Welcome to K Fairy Tales Stories Besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. The bedroom door closed with a soft click that sounded like a prison cell locking. Amara stood frozen in the center of the room, still wearing the heavy white wedding dress that had cost more than her father's restaurant maid in a year. The silk felt like chains against her skin. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Seoul glittered below like scattered diamonds, beautiful and indifferent to her terror. Behind her, she heard him move. Slow, deliberate steps that made her heart hammer against her ribs. Minho Park, 65 years old. The man who controlled half of Korea's underground with a word. The man who had walked into her father's failing restaurant 3 months ago and decided she would be his. "Turn around, Amara." His voice was deep, cultured, carrying the kind of authority that came from decades of being obeyed without question. English, because he knew she understood it better than Korean, because he'd learned everything about her in those 3 months. Everything. She turned slowly, her hands twisting in the elaborate fabric of her dress. He stood by the window, backlit by the city lights. Even in the shadows, his presence filled the room. Tall, broad-shouldered despite his age, moving with the controlled grace of a man who'd survived 65 years in a world that killed most men by 40. His silver hair was perfectly styled. His tuxedo, tailored to perfection. His face, lined with age and experience and something harder, carried a kind of brutal handsomeness that made her chest tighten. "You wore the dress I chose." He moved closer, each step measured. "Good, you're learning." "I didn't have a choice." Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You always have a choice, sweet girl. You chose to marry me instead of watching your father and brothers die. You chose to stand beside me today instead of running. You're choosing to be here now instead of throwing yourself from that window." He stopped directly in front of her, so close she could smell his cologne, expensive and masculine. "Every moment you're choosing survival. That's why I wanted you." Amara's breath came shallow. The wedding had been a nightmare of cameras and strangers, powerful men who looked at her like she was a curious acquisition. Minho's hand had been iron around her waist the entire time, claiming her in front of everyone who mattered in his world. She'd felt like a sacrifice on an altar. "I chose because you threatened my family." Her voice shook, but she forced the words out. "That's not a real choice." "Isn't it?" His hand came up, fingers tracing her jaw with surprising gentleness. "I could have just taken you. No wedding, no warning, no negotiation. I have that power. Instead, I offered your father a deal. I pay his debts, protect your family from his creditors, set your brothers up in legitimate business. All for you." His thumb brushed over her lower lip. "You became my wife instead of my captive. That's more choice than most people in this world ever get." "Why?" The question burst out of her. "Why me? You could have anyone. Younger, more beautiful, actually Korean, someone from your world who understands this life." "Younger than 19, his eyebrow raised. "I think not. As for beauty," his hand slid to the back of her neck, fingers tangling in her hair, "I've had 50 years to see beautiful women. You're the first one who looked at me with fire instead of fear when I walked into that restaurant. The first one who told me my order was wrong and I should try something better." His grip tightened slightly. "The first one who made me want something other than power." She remembered that day, the arrogant older man in the expensive suit who demanded the most expensive item on the menu. She'd been exhausted from a double shift, worried about her father's mounting debts, and she'd snapped at him. Told him the expensive dish was mediocre and he'd do better with the homemade stew her mother had taught them to make. She'd expected him to leave. Instead, he'd smiled and ordered the stew, and come back every day for a week. And then made her father an offer that destroyed her life. "You want me because I was rude to you." Disbelief crept into her voice. "I want you because you were real, because in a world where everyone lies to me, you told me the truth about soup." His other hand found her waist, pulling her closer until their bodies pressed together. Because you're 19 and fierce and untouched by this world's corruption. Because I'm 65 and I've built an empire, but I have no one to leave it to. No heir, no family, just money and power and the certainty that when I die, everything I built dies with me. Understanding crashed over her. You want a child. I want your child. His voice dropped, became something darker. I want you pregnant with my son or daughter. I want to see you grow round with proof that you're mine. I want to know that when I'm gone, something of me continues in a child you gave me. He pulled her impossibly closer. And I want it now, tonight, tomorrow, every night until your body accepts what I'm giving you. Fear spiked through her. I'm not ready. I'm only 19. I haven't even finished university. I don't know anything about being a mother. I don't want. What you want, he interrupted, voice still soft but carrying steel underneath, will change. Your body already knows what it wants. His hand slid down her back, possessive. I saw you watching me during the ceremony. I felt you tremble when I kissed you in front of everyone. You're terrified, yes, but you're also curious, also drawn to this, to me, even though you hate yourself for it. That's not true. But even as she said it, she knew he was right. Somewhere between fear and fury, her body had started responding to him, to the way he touched her like she was precious, to the raw hunger in his eyes when he looked at her, to the absolute certainty in his voice when he spoke about their future. Then prove it. He stepped back, giving her space. Leave, walk out that door, I won't stop you. She stared at him, not understanding the test. You said my family. Your family is protected regardless. I've already paid your father's debts. Your brothers already have their new jobs. That was never dependent on you staying. His expression was unreadable. So leave, Amara. Walk away from me. From this marriage, from everything. I'll have my driver take you wherever you want to go. Her heart pounded. This was it, her escape. She could leave, go back to her family, pretend this nightmare never happened. She took one step toward the door, then another. Her hand reached for the handle. But know this, his voice stopped her. If you walk out, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you'd stayed. You'll wonder what it would have felt like to surrender to this thing between us. You'll wonder what our children would have looked like. He paused. And I'll spend the rest of my life alone, knowing the only woman I ever wanted chose fear over possibility. Her hand froze on the doorknob. Something in his voice, a loneliness so profound it made her chest ache, cut through her terror. She turned back to look at him. He stood by the window again, silhouetted against the city lights, looking like the most powerful and most solitary man in the world. This isn't fair, she whispered. You're giving me a choice but making it impossible to choose anything except you. Life isn't fair, but I'll give you something fair. He walked back to her with that predatory grace. One night. Give me one night to show you what this could be. If tomorrow morning you still want to leave, I'll let you go. No threats, no consequences, just freedom. His hand cupped her face. But if you stay, Amara, if you choose me tomorrow morning, then you're mine completely. No more doubt, no more resistance. You accept this marriage, accept me, and accept that I will spend every night claiming you until you're carrying my child. And if I can't get pregnant, the question slipped out before she could stop it. His smile was sharp. You can. I've had doctors confirm we're both capable, but even if it takes months, even if it takes years, I'll enjoy every single attempt. His thumb brushed her lips again. Say yes, sweet girl, give me tonight. She should say no, should run, should do anything except what her body was screaming at her to do. But she looked into his dark eyes and saw something that looked like desperate hope hidden beneath the control. Saw a man who'd lived 6 decades of violence and power and loneliness offering her something that might be love, might be obsession, might be salvation for both of them. One night, she breathed, and if I stay tomorrow, you have to promise me something. Anything. If I give you a child, you have to let me raise them with love, not as another heir to your empire, not as a weapon or a tool, as a child who gets to be innocent as long as possible. Something softened in his expression. I promise, our children will have everything I never did. Love, protection, choice, and they'll have you as their mother. He pulled her against him. Now stop negotiating and let me show you what you've been missing. His mouth claimed hers before she could respond. The kiss was nothing like the brief, public one at their wedding. This was consuming, demanding, his tongue sweeping into her mouth with an expertise that came from decades of experience. His hands moved over her body with confidence, knowing exactly where to touch, how much pressure to apply, reading her responses like he'd studied a manual on her pleasure. "Too many clothes," he murmured against her lips, his fingers finding the intricate buttons of her wedding dress. He worked them open with surprising patience, peeling the expensive silk away from her skin. When the dress finally pooled at her feet, she stood before him in just white lace lingerie that left little to imagination. His sharp intake of breath made her feel powerful despite her fear. "Perfect," he said roughly. "Even better than I imagined, and I've been imagining this for 3 months." "Your turn." She reached for his jacket with shaking hands. If she was doing this, if she was really choosing this, then she wouldn't be passive, wouldn't be just a victim. She'd participate, claim her own agency in whatever this night became. He helped her remove his clothes with an efficiency that spoke of a man who'd undressed countless times but never felt this particular urgency. When he finally stood before her, she couldn't help but stare. At 65, his body carried scars and lines that told violent stories. But he was still powerful, still commanding, still undeniably masculine in a way that made heat pool low in her belly. "Don't be afraid," he said softly, misreading her silence. "I won't hurt you, not in any way you don't want." "I'm not afraid." And shockingly, she realized it was true. Somewhere between the door and this moment, her fear had transformed into something else. Anticipation, desire, surrender to the inevitable pull between them. He lifted her easily, carried her to the massive bed that dominated the room, laid her down on silk sheets that felt cool against her overheated skin. "I'm going to make this good for you," he promised, covering her body with his. "I'm going to make sure your body remembers this night every time you think about leaving me. I'm going to worship you until the only word you remember is my name." And he did. His hands, his mouth, his decades of experience combined with his singular focus on her pleasure. He learned every sensitive spot, every place that made her gasp or arch or dig her nails into his shoulders. He made her fall apart twice before he finally positioned himself between her thighs. "Last chance," he said, voice strained with control. "Say no now and I'll stop." "Don't stop," the words came out desperate. "Please, Minho, don't stop." His eyes blazed with triumph and something deeper. "Say it. Say you're choosing this." "I'm choosing this. Choosing you. Tonight and tomorrow and—" Her words dissolved into a cry as he finally claimed her completely. There was pain, sharp and brief, her body adjusting to the intrusion. But he held still, letting her accommodate him, whispering words in Korean she didn't understand but felt in her bones. When he finally moved, when the pain transformed into pleasure so intense she thought she might shatter, she understood why women throughout history had surrendered to men like him. Power and gentleness combined, dominance and care. The certainty that she was his completely balanced with the reverence in how he touched her. "You're mine now," he growled against her throat as their bodies moved together. "Mine to protect, mine to pleasure, mine to fill with my child." His rhythm increased, driving deeper. "Every night, Amara, every single night until your body accepts what I'm giving you, until you're pregnant with proof that you belong to me." She should have been horrified by his possessive words. Instead, they pushed her over the edge into ecstasy that whited out her vision. And as she fell, she heard him follow, heard her name on his lips like a prayer. Felt the moment he claimed her, in the most primal way possible. Afterward, as they lay tangled together, sweat cooling on their skin, she felt the weight of what she'd done settle over her. She'd surrendered. She'd chosen this. And despite everything, she couldn't find it in herself to regret it. "Tomorrow morning," he said quietly, his hand possessive on her hip, "what will you choose?" She turned to look at him, saw vulnerability in his eyes that he probably never showed anyone else. Saw the powerful mafia boss reduced to just a man hoping she wouldn't leave him. "Ask me again tomorrow." His hand tightened slightly. "Amara." "Tomorrow," she repeated, then kissed him to soften the uncertainty. "Let me think about everything except right now." And for the rest of that night, he made sure she couldn't think at all. Morning came too quickly and too slowly. Amara woke to sunlight streaming through windows she'd forgotten to close, her body aching in places she'd never paid attention to before. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then movement beside her brought everything crashing back. Minho lay on his side, propped up on one elbow, watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. He'd clearly been awake for a while, just observing her sleep. The position should have felt creepy. Instead, it felt protective. "Good morning, wife." His free hand traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "How do you feel?" Sore, confused, changed in some fundamental way she couldn't name yet. Like I had a very eventful wedding night. His lips curved. "That's one way to describe it. Are you hungry? I can have breakfast brought up." "In a minute." She sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest despite the intimacy they'd shared. "You said I could leave this morning, that you'd let me go if I still wanted to." Something shuddered in his expression. "I did say that, and I'll keep my word if that's what you choose." "But you don't want me to choose that." "No." The single word carried the weight of his 65 years. "I don't want you to leave. I want you to stay and build a life with me. I want you to let me give you everything you've never had. I want you to carry my children and rule beside me and grow old knowing you're the only woman I ever truly wanted." He paused. "But I won't keep you prisoner. That's not the kind of marriage I want with you." Amara studied his face, looking for deception, finding only raw honesty. "If I stay, what exactly does that mean? You said I'd have to accept you completely. What does that look like?" "It means you stop fighting what's between us. It means you accept that you're my wife in every sense of the word. It means you share my bed, my life, my future." His hand moved to her flat stomach. "And it means you let me pursue what I want most. A child with you. Our child." "You're 65 years old. You want to be changing diapers at your age." "I want to hold my son or daughter before I die. I want to teach them everything I know. I want to watch you be their mother." His voice roughened. "I've spent 50 years building power with no one to share it with. No legacy beyond money and fear. You're 19, Amara. You have your whole life ahead of you. But I'm running out of time to build something that matters more than my empire." The urgency in his voice made her chest tight. She'd never thought about his mortality, about the fact that their age gap meant she'd probably outlive him by decades. The idea of him gone, of this powerful man reduced to a memory, created an unexpected ache. "I'm too young to be a mother." But even as she said it, she knew it was a weak argument. "You're young, yes, but you're also strong, fierce, capable. I've watched you manage your father's restaurant, handle drunk customers, protect your younger brothers. You already know how to take care of people." He pulled her closer. "And you won't be alone. You'll have me, resources, help, everything you need. Our child will be loved, Amara, I promise you that. And when you die, when I'm 40 and widowed with children who have to grow up without their father, then you'll have my fortune, my protection even from the grave, and the knowledge that you gave me the greatest gift anyone could give me." His hand cupped her face. "I can't promise you forever, but I can promise you that every day I have left will be devoted to making you happy." She wanted to say no, wanted to demand her freedom and run back to her small, safe life. But that life was gone the moment she'd told him his order was wrong. The moment he'd looked at her and decided she was worth breaking all his own rules for. "If I stay," she said carefully, "I have conditions." "Name them." "I want to finish university. Even if I'm pregnant, even if I have a baby, I want my degree." "Agreed. I'll fund whatever program you choose." "I want my family protected always, not just from their debts, but from your world. They don't get pulled into this life." "Done. Your family remains untouched by my business." "And I want," she hesitated, then pushed forward, "I want you to teach me about your world, about how to survive in it. If I'm going to be your wife, if I'm going to raise children in this life, I need to understand it, not just be some sheltered princess who gets destroyed the moment you're not there to protect me." He smiled then, genuine and warm. "That's why I chose you. You don't just want to survive, you want to conquer." He kissed her softly. "I'll teach you everything, but first I need to know. Are you staying, Amara? Are you choosing me?" She took a breath, thought about what she'd be giving up and what she'd be gaining. Thought about the way he'd touched her last night, the way he'd whispered her name like it was sacred. Thought about the loneliness in his eyes and the fire in her own heart. "I'm staying." The words came out stronger than she expected. "I'm choosing you, Minho, not because I don't have a choice, but because I want to see what we could build together." His kiss was fierce, claiming, full of relief and triumph and promise. When he pulled back, his eyes blazed with possession. "Then you're mine now, completely." "Yours," she agreed, and felt the weight of it settle over her like a crown. The rest of that day passed in a haze of phone calls, arrangements, and Minho's hands constantly finding reasons to touch her. By evening, she'd been moved completely into his private residence, a sprawling penthouse that occupied the top 3 floors of his building. Her few belongings looked lost in the massive closet he'd had renovated just for her. "I can buy you new everything," he said, watching her hang up her modest clothes next to his expensive suits. "You don't need to keep any of this." "I want to keep reminders of who I was before you," she met his eyes, "before this all changed." Understanding flickered across his face. "Then keep them. Just know that who you're becoming will need different armor for this world." That night, he proved his intentions hadn't changed. His hands, his mouth, his body claiming hers with the same intensity as their wedding night. But this time, there was no hesitation in her response. This time, she met him with equal hunger, learning what made him groan, where he liked to be touched, how to drive him as crazy as he drove her. "You're a quick study," he panted against her throat as she moved above him, taking control in a way that clearly delighted him. "I have a good teacher," she gasped as he gripped her hips, changing the angle in a way that made stars explode behind her eyes. "Minho, I—" "Say it, say you're mine." "I'm yours, always yours." His control shattered, and as they fell together, she felt the finality of her choice settle into her bones. She was his wife now. Soon, she'd be the mother of his child. And somehow, between fear and fury and surrender, she was starting to think that might be exactly what she wanted. By the end of the week, a routine had developed. Minho worked from home more often than not, conducting his empire's business from the penthouse office while keeping Amara close. She'd started online classes, working on her degree in business management. In the evenings, he'd pull her away from her studies, hands possessive on her waist, mouth hot against her ear. "Time for more important work," he'd murmur, and she'd set aside her laptop without argument. Every night, without fail, he made love to her with an intensity that never diminished. His focus on getting her pregnant was absolute, but he'd also kept his promise about teaching her. During the day, he'd explain his businesses, both legitimate and otherwise. He'd show her how to read contracts, how to spot betrayal, how to carry herself with the authority of someone who belonged at his side. "You're learning faster than I expected," he said one afternoon, watching her negotiate with a contractor who'd come to discuss renovations. She'd gotten them a better price without even trying. "I told you I was fierce." She smiled at him over her shoulder, and his eyes heated in a way that promised the contractor's visit would be interrupted soon. But not everything was smooth. 2 weeks into their marriage, Amara felt the first real fear of her new life. They were at a restaurant Minho owned, having dinner in a private room. She just excused herself to the restroom when she heard voices in the hallway. Men speaking rapid Korean she struggled to follow completely. But she caught enough to understand they were talking about Minho, about his age, about his new young wife, about how long he could really hold power, about whether she was pregnant yet, because if she wasn't, maybe there was still time to make other arrangements. She pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering, as they passed without seeing her. When she returned to the private room, Minho took one look at her face and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" His voice was sharp, immediately alert. She told him about the conversation, stumbling over the Korean words she wasn't sure she'd understood correctly. His expression went absolutely cold in a way she'd never seen before. This wasn't the man who touched her with reverence. This was the Mafia boss who'd survived 6 decades in a world that killed most men young. "Names," he said quietly. "Did you see their faces?" "No, just heard voices." He pulled out his phone, made a call in Korean too rapid for her to follow. When he hung up, he pulled her onto his lap, his arms coming around her with possessive protectiveness. "You did well telling me. Those men made a mistake discussing business where they could be overheard. They won't make that mistake again." Something in his tone made her shiver. "What are you going to do to them?" "Teach them why I've stayed in power this long." He kissed her temple, gentle despite the violence implicit in his words. Don't worry about it. This is my world to handle. You just keep being exactly who you are. But she couldn't stop worrying. That night, as he moved over her with his usual intensity, she found herself clinging tighter than normal. Minho, what if something happens to you? What if someone decides? He stopped moving, looked down at her with eyes that had gone soft. You're afraid for me. Of course I'm afraid. You have enemies, people who want what you have, and I'm... She couldn't finish the thought. I'm starting to care about you. I'm starting to need you. I'm starting to love you. You're what, sweet girl? His hand cupped her face. I'm pregnant. The lie came out of nowhere, self-preservation making her say anything to distract from the confession she'd almost made. I mean, I might be. I don't know yet. It's too early, but I could be. His entire body went rigid above her. Are you serious? Have you tested? Not yet. It's only been 2 weeks, but I've been feeling different, tired. My breasts are tender. All true, though she had no idea if it meant pregnancy or just stress. The transformation in his expression was startling, pure joy mixed with fierce possession. A baby, our baby. He pulled out of her carefully, his hands immediately going to her stomach. We need to get you to a doctor. Tomorrow, first thing, we need to make sure. Minho, slow down. I don't even know if I am. It might be too early to tell. Then we keep trying until we're certain. But his touch had changed, become even more reverent. And if you are pregnant, everything changes. Your protection doubles. No more going anywhere without guards. No more. See, this is what I was afraid of. She sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. You're already treating me like I'm fragile, like I'm just a vessel for your air. That's not, he stopped, seemed to gather himself. You're right, I'm sorry. It's just that the idea of you carrying my child, of us creating a life together, it makes me feel things I haven't felt in decades. Hope, fear, joy, terror that something could happen to either of you. His vulnerability cut through her annoyance. Nothing's going to happen, and even if I am pregnant, I'm still me, still capable, still fierce. I know, he pulled her back down beside him, and if you're not pregnant yet, we keep trying, every night, multiple times a night if necessary. His hand slid between her thighs. Starting right now. She gasped as his fingers found her sensitive flesh. Minho, And we will again, and again, until your body can't deny what it wants. His mouth found her breast. Until you're so full of me that pregnancy is inevitable. This time when they came together, there was desperation in it. His need to claim her permanently. Her need to be claimed. And somewhere between the pleasure and the intensity, she realized she'd stopped pretending this was just survival. She wanted this. Wanted him. Wanted the life they were building and the child they were trying to create. The next morning, they went to a private clinic Minho owned. The doctor, an older woman with kind eyes, ran tests while Minho paced like an expectant father despite the fact that Amara probably wasn't pregnant yet. It was too soon. Results will take a few hours, the doctor said. But Mrs. Park, I can tell you that everything looks healthy. Your body is certainly capable of conception. It's just a matter of time. See, Minho pulled Amara close as they left the clinic. Time, we have all the time we need. But that afternoon, time ran out in a different way. They were in the penthouse when armed men burst through the door that should have been impenetrable. Minho's security, his carefully constructed defenses, all bypassed by someone with inside knowledge. He shoved Amara behind him immediately, his own weapon appearing in his hand with practiced speed. Stay down, he ordered. His voice carrying absolute authority, despite the chaos erupting around them. The attackers were professional, coordinated, clearly sent by someone with resources. But they'd underestimated Minho. Even at 65, he moved like death itself. Amara watched in horror as he eliminated 3 men with brutal efficiency, his age meaning nothing when survival was on the line. Then she saw the 4th man, raising his weapon toward Minho's back, saw the finger tightening on the trigger, saw her husband's death approaching in slow motion. She moved without thinking, grabbed a heavy statue from the side table and hurled it with all her strength. It caught the attacker in the temple with a sickening crack. He went down hard, weapon clattering away. Minho spun, saw what she'd done, saw the man who would have killed him lying unconscious. For a moment, his expression was pure shock. Then his security team finally arrived, securing the remaining attackers, and he was pulling her into his arms with shaking hands. "You saved my life." His voice was rough against her hair. "You could have run, could have hidden, and instead you saved my life." "Of course I did." She was trembling now, adrenaline crashing. "You're my husband. She couldn't say the rest. "You're everything. You're mine. You're the father of the child I desperately want to give you." He pulled back to look at her face, and whatever he saw there made his eyes blaze. "I love you." The confession came out fierce, absolute. "I know it's too soon. I know you probably don't feel the same, but Amara, I love you. Not just as my wife, not just as the mother of my future children, but as you. The woman who told me my order was wrong. The woman who challenges me and saves my life and makes me want to be better than I am." Tears burned her eyes. "You can't love me. You barely know me." "I know enough. I know you're brave and fierce and loyal. I know you make me feel alive in ways I haven't felt in decades. I know that the thought of losing you terrifies me more than any enemy ever could." His hands cupped her face. "And I know that I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing to stay with me." "Minho," her voice broke. "You don't have to say it back. Not until you're ready. Not until you mean it." He kissed her softly. "But know that you own me, Amara, completely. My empire, my fortune, my life, all of it is yours, because you're the only thing I've ever truly wanted that wasn't about power." Before she could respond, his phone rang. He answered it with a sharp word in Korean, listened, then looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. "The doctor," he said quietly. "Your test results are ready." They returned to the clinic under heavy guard, the earlier attack making everyone paranoid. The doctor met them in her private office, her expression carefully neutral. "Mrs. Park, the results of your pregnancy test are negative. You're not currently pregnant." She paused at Minho's visible disappointment. "However, based on your cycle timing and health markers, you're approaching your most fertile window. The next few days would be optimal for conception." Minho's hand found Amara's immediately. "Then we focus on the next few days. Thank you, doctor." On the drive back, he was quiet, his thumb tracing patterns on her hand. Finally, he said, "I thought maybe this time. When you said you felt different, I let myself hope." "I'm sorry," and she was. She'd seen the joy in his face when he thought she might be pregnant. "Maybe soon." "Maybe tonight." He pulled her close. "And tomorrow, and the next day. The doctor said these are the optimal days, so I'm clearing my schedule completely. For the next 72 hours, my only job is getting you pregnant." Heat flooded through her. "That's not how it works. You can't just decide." "Can't I?" His hand slid up her thigh. "I'm 65 years old, Amara. I don't have the luxury of leaving this to chance. If the doctor says these are the days, then these are the days I make sure every possible advantage is in our favor." "You're insane." "I'm determined." His lips found her neck. "There's a difference. And by the time these 3 days are over, your body won't have any choice but to accept what I'm giving it." He made good on his promise. That night, he took her 3 separate times, each time with the focused intensity of a man on a mission. Between rounds, he'd hold her close, his hand possessive on her stomach, talking about the future, about the child they'd create, about the life they'd build. "Boy or girl?" he asked in the quiet darkness. "Do you have a preference?" "Healthy." She traced the scars on his chest, marks from a violent life. "That's all I care about." "A daughter would be beautiful like you, strong like you." His hand stroked through her hair. "But a son would carry on the family name. Either way, they'll be loved." "And spoiled. You're going to spoil them rotten." "Absolutely," he grinned. "I've spent 65 years acquiring wealth. I want to spend whatever time I have left showering it on my family." The next morning, she woke to him already inside her, moving with slow, deep strokes that had her gasping before she was fully conscious. "Minho, what?" "Morning is optimal too," he murmured against her breast. "Maximum fertility requires maximum effort." "You're impossible." "I'm thorough." He rolled them over, putting her on top. "Now ride me, wife. Show me how much you want this baby." And she did. Because somewhere in the past 3 weeks, she'd stopped just accepting her fate and started actively wanting it. Wanted his child growing inside her. Wanted the permanent bond that would create between them. Wanted to give him the legacy he craved and deserved. By that evening, she was exhausted and sore and absolutely satisfied. They lay tangled together, her body marked with evidence of his possession, his hands still unable to stop touching her. "Do you think it worked?" she asked quietly. "We'll know in 2 weeks, but yes, I think so." He pulled her closer. "I think we just made our child, Amara. I think our son or daughter is already forming inside you." "You can't possibly know that." "I know." His certainty was absolute. "I can feel it. Something changed today. You're carrying my baby now, I'm sure of it." She wanted to tell him he was being ridiculous, but part of her felt it too. A change, subtle but present. A sense of something new taking root inside her body. 3 days later, they went to dinner at another of Minho's properties. She just excused herself to the restroom when a young man approached her in the hallway. Korean, handsome, probably mid-20s. His smile was charming, but his eyes held calculation. "Mrs. Park," he said in English. "I'm Jinwoo Kim. I work for your husband." "It's nice to meet you." She moved to step around him, but he blocked her path smoothly. "I wanted to personally congratulate you on your marriage. It must be quite an adjustment, being with a man so much older, so much more experienced." His eyes raked over her in a way that made her skin crawl. "If you ever need someone closer to your own age to talk to, someone who understands what it's like to be young in this world, I'm available." Understanding crashed over her. This wasn't innocent flirtation. This was a test or a trap or both. "I appreciate the offer, but I have everything I need with my husband." "Do you?" He stepped closer, deliberately invading her space. "Because from what I hear, he's obsessed with getting you pregnant, using you like a breeding mare. That can't be what a beautiful 19-year-old woman wants from life." Rage flooded through her. "You don't know anything about my marriage or what I want." "I know you're too young and too beautiful to waste your life on an old man who will probably be dead in 10 years. His hand reached for her arm. "You could do so much better, Amara. I could show you." "Jinwoo," Minho's voice came from behind them, cold enough to freeze hell. "Step away from my wife, now." The younger man paled, dropping his hand immediately. "Sir, I was just..." "Just what? Propositioning my wife, insulting me while trying to seduce her." Minho moved to stand beside Amara, his hand immediately going to her waist in a gesture of pure possession. "Do you want to know what happens to men who touch what's mine?" "It was a misunderstanding. I didn't mean..." "You meant exactly what you said." Minho's voice never rose, but the menace in it was undeniable. "You wanted to test her loyalty, see if my young wife could be tempted away from her old husband. Well, you have your answer, and now you'll have your consequences. You're fired, effective immediately, and if I ever see you near her again, you'll find out why people fear me." Jinwoo fled without another word. Minho watched him go, then turned to Amara. "Are you all right? Did he touch you?" "He tried. I was handling it." She met his eyes. "Do you have people testing me, seeing if I'll betray you?" "No, that was his own stupidity, not a test I authorized." His jaw clenched. "But I won't lie, Amara. There are people in my organization who question this marriage, who think you're a weakness or a liability, who wonder if a 19-year-old girl can really be loyal to a 65-year-old man." "And what do you think?" "I think you just proved every single one of them wrong." He pulled her close. "I think you're the strongest person I know, and I think any man stupid enough to try to take you from me deserves exactly what he gets." That night he made love to her with a possessiveness that bordered on primal. "You're mine," he growled, his body claiming hers with bruising intensity. "Every other man can look, can want, can dream, but you're mine, Amara, only mine." "Only yours," she gasped, meeting his thrusts with equal fervor. "Forever yours." "And pregnant with my child." His hand pressed against her stomach, "carrying proof that you belong to me." "Yes, God, yes, Minhoim." She shattered around him, and he followed immediately, both of them caught in the intensity of their connection. Afterward, as she lay boneless in his arms, she realized something had shifted again. The incident with Jinwoo had crystallized her feelings, forced her to confront what she'd been denying. "I love you." The words came out quiet but certain. "I know you said I don't have to say it until I'm ready, but I'm ready. I love you, Minho. Not because you saved my family or because I'm trapped or because I don't have choices, but because you're you. Because you make me feel safe and challenged and desired and valued all at once. Because you gave me the option to leave and I chose to stay. Because loving you feels like the only honest thing I've ever done." His arms tightened around her. "Say it again." "I love you." Again. "I love you, Minho. I love my husband. I love the father of our children. I love you." He kissed her then, deep and claiming, and she tasted salt on his lips. Tears. This powerful, dangerous man was crying because she loved him. "I'll never let you regret this," he whispered against her mouth. "Never let you regret choosing me. I swear it on everything I am." 2 weeks later, they returned to the doctor. Amara's period hadn't come. She'd been exhausted, nauseous in the mornings, her breasts tender and swollen. All signs she'd researched obsessively on her phone. The pregnancy test came back positive. Minho's reaction was everything she'd imagined and more. He went absolutely still when the doctor gave them the news, his hand crushing hers. Then he pulled her into his arms and held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "We're having a baby," he said, voice thick with emotion. "You're pregnant, you're really pregnant." "I'm really pregnant," she laughed through her own tears. "We did it." "You did it. You gave me everything I wanted." He pulled back to look at her face, his eyes shining. "Thank you, Amara. Thank you for staying, for loving me, for giving me this gift." The doctor cleared her throat. "Congratulations to you both. Based on the hormone levels, I'd estimate you're about 4 weeks along. We'll do an ultrasound in a few more weeks to confirm dates and see the heartbeat." 4 weeks, which meant she'd gotten pregnant during those 3 intense days when Minho had focused everything on conception. She'd been right about feeling different. Her body had known before any test confirmed it. The drive home was quiet, both of them processing the enormity of it. She was going to be a mother at 19. He was going to be a father at 65. They were going to create a life together, a family built on impossible circumstances and even more impossible love. "Everything changes now," Minho said finally, his hand possessive on her still flat stomach. "Your safety becomes paramount. No more going anywhere without security. No more taking risks. You're carrying my heir, Amara, the most precious thing in my world." "I'm not fragile." "No, but you're also not invincible, and I won't risk either of you." His expression brooked no argument. "You can fight me on this if you want, but you'll lose. When it comes to protecting you and our baby, I will be absolutely ruthless." She should have been annoyed by his high-handedness. Instead, she found it oddly comforting. This was a man who would move heaven and earth to keep them safe. "Fine, but I'm still finishing my degree, still learning about the business, still being myself." "I wouldn't want anything else." He kissed her softly. "You're going to be an incredible mother, sweet girl. Our child is so lucky to have you." Over the following months, they settled into a new routine. Amara's pregnancy progressed normally, her body changing in ways that fascinated and terrified her. Minho was attentive to the point of obsession, making sure she ate properly, rested enough, took her vitamins, attended every doctor's appointment. The ultrasound at 8 weeks showed a tiny flickering heartbeat that made them both cry. At 12 weeks, they learned they were having a girl. Minho's reaction was pure joy mixed with terror. "A daughter," he said, staring at the ultrasound image like it held the secrets of the universe. "We're having a daughter." "Are you disappointed? I know you talked about wanting a son to carry on the family name." "Disappointed?" He looked at her like she was crazy. "Amara, I'm terrified. A daughter means I'll spend the rest of my life making sure no man ever treats her the way I've treated women. It means I'll be the old father at school events, the one people whisper about. It means I might not live to see her graduate college or get married or have children of her own." His hand found her rounded belly. "But I'm also more excited than I've ever been. A little girl who looks like you. Who has your fire and strength. Nothing could make me happier." At 16 weeks, she felt the first flutter of movement. She grabbed Minho's hand immediately, pressing it to where she'd felt the sensation. "Did you feel that?" She moved. His eyes widened. That's our daughter, moving inside you, alive and growing in hours. Hours, she agreed, marveling at how much her life had changed in 6 months. From terrified captive to willing wife to expectant mother. From hating Minho to loving him with an intensity that sometimes scared her. But not everything was perfect. At 18 weeks, there was an incident. She was at a prenatal appointment when armed men tried to grab her in the parking garage. Minho's security killed 2 of them, captured the 3rd. It turned out to be a rival organization trying to leverage her and the baby against Minho. His response was swift and brutal. Within 24 hours, the organization that had targeted her ceased to exist. Completely, buildings burned, accounts emptied, leaders disappeared. The message was clear: touch his family and suffer consequences beyond imagining. You can't just eliminate entire organizations because they threatened me, Amara said, watching news reports of the destruction. Watch me. Minho's expression was carved from stone. You're carrying my daughter. Anyone who threatens either of you forfeits their right to exist. I will burn this entire city down before I let anyone hurt you. The fierce protectiveness should have scared her. Instead, it made her feel safer than ever. This was a man who would do anything to keep them safe. Anything. At 22 weeks, they had a scare. Amara started bleeding and cramping. Minho went white as death, had her at the hospital in minutes. The doctor did an emergency ultrasound, found the baby was fine, just some normal complications that required bed rest. Bed rest for how long? Amara asked. The remainder of your pregnancy, the doctor said. I'm sorry, Mrs. Park, but it's the safest option for the baby. Minho's hand found hers, squeezed tight. Whatever it takes, she'll do whatever it takes. The next 4 months were the longest of Amara's life. Confined to bed, bored out of her mind, worried constantly about the baby. Minho barely left her side, conducting all his business from their bedroom, making sure she was never alone. You're going to drive me crazy, she complained at 28 weeks, huge and uncomfortable and desperate to move. Better crazy than losing you or our daughter. He settled beside her on the bed, his hand going immediately to her swollen belly. Just a few more months, sweet girl, then you can move all you want. Easy for you to say. You're not the one carrying a bowling ball. I'd trade places with you if I could. And he meant it. She could see it in his eyes. I'd take all of this on myself if it meant keeping you comfortable. At 36 weeks, during a routine checkup, the doctor frowned at the ultrasound. The baby's heart rate is elevated, and Mrs. Park's blood pressure is rising. I think we need to consider inducing labor soon. How soon? Minho's voice was sharp. This week, tomorrow if possible. The baby's developed enough to be safe, and I'm concerned about waiting longer. They induced labor the next day. Amara had never felt pain like this, waves of agony that made her understand why women throughout history feared childbirth. Minho stayed by her side the entire time, letting her crush his hand, whispering encouragement, looking more terrified than she'd ever seen him. I can't do this, she gasped at hour 12. Minho, I can't. Yes, you can. You're the strongest person I know. Just a little longer, sweet girl, just a little longer. At hour 16, their daughter finally made her entrance into the world. Screaming and perfect and absolutely beautiful. The doctor placed her on Amara's chest, and the exhaustion and pain vanished, replaced by overwhelming love. She's perfect, Amara sobbed, touching her daughter's tiny face. Minho, look at her, she's perfect. He was crying too, unashamed, looking at their daughter like she was a miracle. She's everything. Both of you are everything. He leaned down to kiss Amara's forehead. Thank you for this. Thank you for her. Thank you for giving me a family when I thought I'd die alone. They named her Mincio, a combination of both their heritages. And as Amara held her daughter while Minho wrapped his arms around them both, she thought about how far they'd come. From terrified 19-year-old to willing wife to devoted mother. From seeing Minho as her captor to loving him as her husband and the father of her child. No regrets, he asked quietly, as if reading her thoughts. Only that I fought it for so long. She looked at him, at the man who'd changed her life in every way. I should have chosen you that very first morning, should have trusted what I felt instead of being afraid of it. You chose me when you were ready. That's all that matters. He kissed her softly, careful of the baby between them. And now we have forever to build on that choice. Not forever. The words came out sad. You're 65, Minho. We have maybe 20 or 30 years if we're lucky. Then we make every day count. His hand stroked through her hair. Every morning I wake up with you beside me is a gift I never thought I'd have. Every moment with our daughter is time I never expected to experience. I'll take whatever years we have and be grateful for all of them. 6 months later, life had settled into a new rhythm. Mincio was thriving, a happy baby who clearly had her father wrapped around her tiny finger. Amara had finished her degree online and was slowly being integrated into Minho's legitimate businesses. And Minho himself had stepped back from the more dangerous aspects of his empire, focusing on building something their daughter could be proud of. I never thought I'd see you change diapers, Amara said, watching her powerful Mafia boss husband expertly handle their squirming daughter. I never thought I'd want to. He lifted Mincio, making her giggle. But everything's different now. She's different. You're different. I'm different. We're a family, Amara, and I'll do anything for my family, including diapers. That night, after Mincio was asleep, they lay in bed together. Amara curled against Minho's side in the familiar position they'd perfected over the past year and a half. I want another one, he said quietly. She lifted her head to look at him. Another baby. Yes, I know it's soon. I know you just went through hell having Mincio. But Amara, I don't have unlimited time. I want to give our daughter siblings. Want to fill this house with children while I still can. She should have been horrified by the idea. Should have demanded time to recover, to be young, to figure out who she was as a mother before adding more children. But looking at his face, seeing the desperate hope there, she found herself nodding. One more, she agreed. But let's wait until Mincio is at least a year old. Give my body time to heal properly. His relief was palpable. Agreed, 1 year, then we start trying for number 2. He kept his promise, waiting the full year before beginning their second attempt at pregnancy. But unlike the first time, conception didn't happen immediately. Month after month passed with negative tests. Amara was 21 now, Minho was 67. The fertility window was narrowing. Maybe it's not meant to be, Amara said after the 6th negative test. We have Mincio, that's more than enough. It's not enough for me. His stubbornness hadn't diminished. I want more. I want to see you pregnant again, want to give Mincio siblings, want to build the family I've dreamed of my entire life. 3 months later, the test finally came back positive. Minho's joy was even greater than the first time, if that was possible. Another baby, our second child. Amara, you've given me everything. This pregnancy was harder than the first. Amara was exhausted from chasing a toddler while growing another baby. Minho hired more help, insisted she rest more, hovered even worse than before. At the 20-week ultrasound, they learned they were having a boy. A son, Minho's voice cracked with emotion. A daughter and a son, our family is complete. Their son, Jinho, was born 2 weeks early but healthy and strong. And as Amara held him while Minho held Mincio, introducing their daughter to her baby brother, she felt complete in a way she'd never expected. This is it, she said firmly. 2 is perfect, 2 is enough, I'm done being pregnant. 2 is perfect, Minho agreed, looking at his family with undisguised love. 2 beautiful children, 1 incredible wife, more happiness than any man deserves. I'm the luckiest man alive. Over the following years, they built the life Minho had dreamed of. Mincio grew into a confident, fierce little girl who had her father completely under her control. Jinho was calmer, thoughtful, but just as beloved. Amara managed several of Minho's legitimate businesses, proving herself a brilliant strategist. And Minho himself had transitioned almost completely out of his criminal empire, building a legacy their children could actually inherit. On Amara's 25th birthday, 6 years after their wedding night, they celebrated with their children and close family. Minho had aged visibly, now 71, but his eyes still held the same intensity when he looked at her. No regrets, he asked that night, echoing the question from years before. Not a single one. She curled into his arms, exactly where she belonged. You gave me everything, Minho. A family, a purpose, a love I never thought I'd find. How could I ever regret choosing you? Even though I'm an old man now. Even though I can't keep up with the children the way you can. Even though, especially though, she kissed him softly. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, even if the beginning was terrifying. You're my husband, the father of my children, the love of my life. Age doesn't change any of that. He pulled her closer, his hand still possessive on her hip after all these years. I love you, Amara, more than I thought possible to love another person. Thank you for staying that morning. Thank you for building this life with me. Thank you for my family. I love you too. She settled against him, feeling safe and loved and exactly where she was meant to be. Always and forever, no matter what comes next. And as she drifted off to sleep in the arms of the man who'd claimed her at 19, who'd loved her at 20, who'd built a family with her through her early 20s, she knew that sometimes the scariest choices led to the most beautiful destinations. Sometimes captivity became freedom. Sometimes age gaps meant wisdom and protection and devotion. Sometimes the most ruthless mafia boss could become the most loving husband and father. Their story had started with threats and fear, and his command that she give him a child or her life, but it had transformed into something neither of them expected. Into love, genuine and deep and enduring. Into family, built on impossible circumstances and even more impossible hope. Into happiness that neither of them thought they deserved but both of them had found. And that was worth everything. Worth the fear, worth the surrender, worth every moment of uncertainty. Because in the end, Amara had given Minho more than just heirs to his empire. She'd given him a reason to live, a reason to be better, a reason to believe that even men like him could find redemption in the arms of a fierce 19-year-old girl who told him his order was wrong and accidentally stolen his heart. Their children would grow up loved, protected, given choices their parents never had. Their legacy would be more than violence and power. It would be love, passed down through generations, proof that even the darkest beginnings could lead to the brightest futures. And every night, as Minho held Amara close, his hand possessive on her waist just as it had been that first terrifying wedding night, they both knew they'd found something rare and precious. They'd found each other against all odds, and built something that would last far beyond Minho's lifetime. Something that would continue in their children, their grandchildren, their legacy of choosing love over fear, hope over despair, together over alone. That was the real ending to their story. Not the fear or the threats or the forced beginning, but the love they built afterward, intentionally and carefully and absolutely. Forever.